I'm replacing the Sterling DC to DC charger in this 2021 Unity with a Kisae 50 amp DC to DC charger. So the first thing we need to do are disconnect the house batteries so we don't have any power going to the house side. Okay, so now we're going to disconnect the chassis battery because we're going to be replacing the DC to DC charger that's under here. So I always move the seat forward, move the back forward, because we want to have the easiest access. We'll need to be, we need to move the seat around. So get this moved up front so you have clear access around it. And then as far as the driver's side goes, you want the driver's side all the way back so you can get into work on it. Okay, so we're going to remove all these mats and we'll come back. All right, so we're going to be disconnecting the chassis battery. And to do that, we have to remove this panel, which basically just pulls out. And then inside, you're going to see this connector with the little red button on the top. That's what you disconnect to disconnect your chassis battery. So you just reach in and you press down. You press down on the tab at the same time that you pull it. So I'm not going to be able to get a picture of that, but I'll show you that. To where you put your hand in basically sideways, so you can use your thumb to press the button at the same time that you're trying to pull it off. So put your hand in sideways, kind of like this, so you can use your thumb to press the button, and then just pull it off of that post. So you just pull it off of that post. All right, the next thing you're going to do on the newer models, the 2020 newer models with the electric seats, you have to pull fuse 32, which is this 10 amp fuse, because if you don't pull that fuse, then your little emergency battery that's under the seat that runs some of the safety features, if you lose your engine battery, it will die. So you want to pull that fuse as well when you disconnect your chassis battery. Okay, to do that we need to remove the passenger seat, and this is a Torx or star connection, but a standard 10 millimeter 6 hex head deep well socket will remove all these as well. So you don't need any fancy sockets, just your standard 10 millimeter socket will remove these. So basically there's 4 of these bolts in each corner. We're going to undo those bolts and talk about how we're going to remove the seat. Okay. Okay. You really don't need to. Okay, so now we're going to remove the seat, but you have to be careful because there's a cord under here that runs a lot, not only the seat functions, but runs like your seat belt, safety features, things like that. So you don't want to stretch it or pull it or anything. So this is like a 2-person job. All right, so basically we're just gonna like roll it off the back corner there and make sure that these metal brackets get on the cardboard, because you don't want to damage your floor. I'll put cardboard down so you don't damage your floor. And we're just gonna hold on. wait, it's too tight. I gotta find where it's connected. Oh. Okay, I gotta get... Okay. So yeah, so you don't want this cord to pull very tight. So what we need to do is you need to trace it. See, you can see it right here. And you can see it's zip tied. So basically you need to trace it back and cut off, if you can get your hand in there. Let's just get that back up. So, all right, so now we've zip tied the cord. Okay, don't lift it too far. All right, put your corner down over there. Get this cardboard box. No, wait. Okay, now you need to come out. Can you get out? To basically pull it back. Okay, and let it tip. Oh, can you get that arm? Okay, and let it tip back behind the seat. No, just...
Oh, behind the other seat?
Yeah. There, like that.
Okay.
Okay, now see how this is all free? See, there were two clips here that somebody has previously unclipped, because one used to be clipped on this and then one used to be clipped up in the front. So somebody put a zip tie, I'm not sure who, maybe Leisure did that, but normally I don't see, you know, I see them in their original factory positions. Okay, so now we're going to unclip this door. There's a door under here, and you can see that it has two little clips, which you can feel right here. If you push them down, and pull out on them, then they come loose. And that frees it up. So you basically want to pull this back, and I need some scissors. And then you want to cut this foam piece. You just want to cut a straight line back so you can remove it like that. Okay, and like I said, now you can see that this seat wiring, which you don't want to stress or strain or stretch or do anything to, you want to be very careful with that, or you'll throw a dash code that requires you to go to Mercedes. So, and you can see that runs under the seat. So, that's what that is. Now we have the Sterling here, and you can pop this off, and that exposes the wiring for the Sterling. So let me get some tools. I'll be back. Oh wait, let me get my tape. First thing we're going to do is we're going to undo all these little clips that hold the wires, because one wire wait, let me get a tray. Oh wait, I need my glasses. Start it back up. Okay. All right, so here's the Sterling. We're going to start removing all these little wire holders. remove the screws holding the Sterling. Okay. All right, so we got this loose. We've got, got a couple more wire connectors I gotta get rid of. You're basically just trying to free up all the wiring so you have room to work and stretch it, get it where it needs to go when you're putting the Kisae DC to DC charger in. You can always put some of these back in if you want after you're done. But in the meantime, you need room to work. Okay, let's see how that goes. All right, now we're gonna, this is the ignition wire, this orange wire. And we're not going to be using it anymore. So I'm going to tape it up. And then we can actually can just tuck it right back in the wire loom so it's out of your way because we're not using it. Now, if this is a 2021, so Leisure installs the chassis battery, which is the input battery in, which is this terminal. They install this on a relay, so it only works with the ignition. And I like to treat all these wires as if they're hot until I'm ready for them. So I'm going to wrap it with some painter's tape loosely until I'm ready to deal with it. Anyway, so Leisure hooks on the 2021 and newer. Leisure attaches the chassis battery connection to a relay that only works with the ignition. So when the ignition is off, the DC to DC charger is isolated, and that's what you want. They also did it in some of the 2020 models, but really if you have a 2020 model and you're doing this, you always need to check the voltage across the ground and the chassis battery connection, because if you have voltage, then you're going to have to install a relay. And my guide for putting a Kisae in, replacing your Sterling, it tells you how to put that relay in. But we don't, and this is the ground, but we don't have to worry about that because a relay is already in this one. if you don't isolate the DC to DC charger, if the ignition doesn't isolate the DC to DC charger, then when you attach something like a chassis battery maintainer, as soon as the chassis battery maintainer turns on and starts charging the chassis battery, the DC to DC charger thinks the engine is on. So then it turns on and basically is using the charging that's coming from the house battery to maintain the chassis battery to recharge the chassis battery, because it doesn't understand that the engine isn't really running. It's just your chassis battery maintainer keeping your battery charged. So if you don't have an ignition isolation relay, then you're going to create a do loop of charging that will run both your batteries down. So you definitely want a relay if your chassis battery cable has voltage on it, regardless of whether the ignition is on or off. Now these two little wires, these are the battery, for battery sensor, temperature sensor monitor for the Sterling, and we won't be using these, so and they're not hot, so I can really use painter's tape as the long term, just to tidy up the wire so they're not sticking around anywhere. And then, like I said, you can just stuff it down in the wire, the existing wire loom, just to keep it out of the way. You could put a zip tie on it later, whatever you want. Okay, so now the Sterling is disconnected, and we can move on with the Kisae installation. Okay, so now we're going to use this shelf, and I use a shelf because I want it to sit up. I don't want to install anything on this board because the intake for the Kisae is basically on the bottom, so I don't want it to be blocked. So I use a shelf so the Kisae, the new DC to DC charger, will sit up. That's one of the things that you have to deal with the DC to DC charger. It puts off a lot of heat, and so you want to make sure it can get plenty of ventilation in this basically enclosed seat base. So I take off these little feet because I want to reuse them. I'll get the Kisae. Alright, so this is the Kisae 50 amp 12 volt DC to DC charger, and here's your directions. So you just take the unit out of the box, and like I said, this is the intake where the air goes in. There's a fan right there, and this is the intake. So if you were to set this flat, you can see that would, you know, essentially you'd have just a little teeny slit for air to come in, and I think it needs more air than I definitely know it needs more air. So one of the first things I do is remove this little cover on the end, because this is where your wire connections are. This is just a really small Phillips head. Now I don't reuse that because this is where the air blows out from that fan. So the fan takes in cooler air and it blows it through the unit to cool it, and it comes out here. So you can see when you have this on, it actually cuts the air down quite a bit. You know, the ability. So if you put this on something flat, you're really reducing how much air can get through this area. And then when you put this cover on, it really cuts down the amount of air that can come out.
So I like it to get as much air as possible, so I don't reuse that. And as I said, I'm going to figure out, I'm going to cut this shelf down, but we're going to install this on this shelf. So I'm going to just cut the legs off, and you can see by the design of this that, you know, the back, this goes down, so the back legs need to be a little bit longer than the front. So I'm just going to start cutting. Basically want to cut it in equal lengths. You could use a hacksaw, you know, you can use whatever you have to cut through these. I like to use my grinder. So I'm just checking the front. I want that a little bit lower. And that makes a nice little table. We're going to put the DC to DC charger on here. And the wires are below it. That's good. We have plenty of room for the ventilation to swirl around, so all that's good. Okay. Then, so now I am going to Kisae attached to the little frame. I put zip ties across it. I used a zip tie down around here on one leg and another zip tie down around here on this side. To hold it onto, you know, so it won't slip and slide. Then I reused one of my little wire holders to hold one of the legs to this board, and I put a zip tie back here on this leg. So now, you know, it's not going to move anywhere. It's just gonna, you know, stay in this location. It, you know, if it bounces around, I mean, as you're driving, that none of that matters. Okay, so now we're gonna get on with doing our wiring. So let me get my wiring stuff and I'll be back. Now, what we're going to need to do is, let's see, I think, where's that book? I want to just check my, you got it on? Okay, so now we are going to start wiring the Kisae. And channel 3, which is right here, channel 3, this is the negative and this is the positive, and channel 3 is the input. So that means it's the chassis battery connection. So I'm going to first do the chassis battery. And this is number 6 cable, and number 6 takes a 1/4, and this is not cut off enough, so I need to peel some casing back. I just use these to cut through the casing, and then I just, you know, go like that. You don't want to cut any of the wires, you just want to cut it enough to where you can just get the casing off. Okay. And then you take your number 6 by 1/4 of an inch and you get it in there. And then I have these nice crimpers that I'll put a link in my video to, and you just crimp it. I always give it 2 crimps, make a nice connection, and then you cut off some heat shrink. Okay, and then you get your, where's my screwdriver? You get your screwdriver, you take off this. Make sure it's nice and tight. And there's your first connection. All right, and so now we've got to deal with the, I'm gonna have to remove that. Okay, I'll be back. You're on. Okay, so now we're going to attach, this is the house battery wire. It's also a 6-gauge wire. Now one of the ways you can tell, you can make sure that you understand this is a chassis battery, because you can see it's running under this channel, which this channel runs across to right next to the driver's seat and comes out where that white piece is sticking out where wires are coming to go to the battery. So you know that's going to the chassis battery. This wire runs under a channel in the back here. I don't know if you can see it down there. And that's going to the house battery. So we're going to do the same thing where we want to cut off a little bit of this case, a little more casing. Okay. screwdriver. Okay, now the house battery is channel 1 right here. But you have to watch because there's a negative and a positive. And it's the output. Channel 1 is the output. So you want to make sure that you get the house battery connected to the positive terminal of the output. Tight. Okay. All right, now we have the negative, so I'm going to do two number 10 wires. You only need a number 10 wire for the ground for the negative terminals, and then we're going to take them to this seat base bolt, and then I'm also going to make a number 10 wire for this case ground, and we're going to take everything to this bolt. So let me get that going. All right, do you want to turn it on? Okay, so 17 millimeter. So you can loosen that because we're gonna be putting our negative connections under there. And I need to get some number 10 wire. You're on. All right, so now I'm gonna make, like I said, I'm gonna make cables that go from all the negatives. So one for the chassis battery, one for the house battery, one for the case ground. With number 10 wire. Twist your wire. Thread it onto your connector. Push it all the way to the top where you can see the threads coming out. And then crimp it. Give it a tug, make sure it's tight. Screwdriver. I'll start with a house battery. You could actually put a jumper across the negatives, but then you start to stack up too many connectors, so I don't do that. I just run a number 10 wire to each thing. So I'll just do all these. You don't want any of the strands to not make it into the connector. Which I can see, you can see they're pushing down, so I don't want that. So you have to straighten them out as much as you can so they go into the connector, and I just twist the connector on lightly and slowly to make sure they all go up into the top. And like I said, make sure the little strands are sticking out of the top. And then so then you want a flat washer, lock washer, nut. And this is a 10 millimeter. And you want this tight, you know, you don't want to make it gorilla tight. Just want to give it a nice little rest. Alright, pull these through. And then I have one last piece. Oh no, that's not it. Okay, let me get another piece of black. It's gonna work, okay. Alright, this is channel 3 negative. Okay. Now I'm going to use these larger ones for under here, but I'm just going to cut a little piece off so it fits more under that against the bolt. Okay. Now I'm going to put one on each end. forgot. I could have reused my ground. Well, too bad. I'm running new ground. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since I forgot, I could have put a connector on the ground that was on the Kisae, on the Sterling, but it was hiding under there and I forgot about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a butt splice connector. And put one of the grounds to this. Because this ground is also a chassis ground. Give it a tug, make sure it's on there good. Okay. All right. Okay, where are we? All right, these two. Bring these through. Stick them under the I need to cut off a little bit more. This one you do want to get tight because it's your seat base bolt. Okay. All right. Now we have the Kisae done.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the settings and show you how to complete the Kisae installation. Even though I'm actually going to install the Xantrex EcoCharge chassis battery maintainer, but I'm going to do that in a separate video. So if you want to install the Xantrex EcoCharge, you can skip on over to that video and see how that's done before you button things up. Okay, so now all you have to do to go into your to do the settings for the Kisae is reconnect your house battery, flip this power switch on the Kisae, and it will immediately come to life and you can do the settings. Doing the settings is pretty straightforward, and here's the settings that I recommend. Once the settings are complete, the unit will go to sleep and you can move on with buttoning things up.
Okay, so I've cut a square out of this piece of foam and I'm going to tape this. Here, I think we're done with that. And I just use black Gorilla Tape because it's very sturdy. So I'll tape this up and we'll come back. Okay, so now I put this screen over this so you can see it's going to get a lot more air. But now I also need to cut out the center for the cord. So I just cut out a nice big hole. For the cord. And then this is going to go underneath this. So we have to get that in there. Oh. This goes up, that goes down. So that goes back, and then this is going to pull back over. And then we also need to cut this out. All right, now we can put the seat back on. Tilt it. Oh, wait. All right, just pick it up. Start putting where's my bolts? I'm gonna go get the. All right, so we're gonna put all four of these bolts on again. Tighten the seat down, and we'll be done with this little seat. Okay, that's it. Okay, so we got the seat back on, the cover, you can see what a nice cover we have for ventilation. You can now just put fuse 32 back in and reconnect your chassis battery,
and you're done installing your Kisae. Enjoy your 50 amps of alternator charging.